commentary and build a community around our pond.
What was that called again?
Behavior. And I work at the health department. We push the vaccines program to keep our children immunized. And one of the things that I wanted to know coming here today was on the metrics, when you're trying to establish what is a good conversion rate, because for us it's if they use our interactive tools on the recommended immunization schedule. And I wanted to know, is there a way to find out what is an industry standard for what is considered a good conversion rate and what is considered a good number of seconds on a landing page, like for a campaign? Because if a marketing agency who we've hired to design it tells me that 3 seconds is great, or 7 seconds is great, or 10 seconds is great, how am I supposed to know that great according to who? Right. You know, and how many conversions really is great? Because I've got some numbers now that I can benchmark against, because I've already gotten one set of Google Analytics reports on page views and number of seconds, and they even track like the demographics on where they were coming from, where our campaign was being pushed, and as well as break down as best they could on the race, ethnicity, and how they were responding on using the interactive tools. And but I took my report to a couple of experts from New Jersey who took a look at it, and they do a lot of seminars and consulting, and they told me that the landing page time was not good because it was a very high volatile topic, you know, whether or not to get your children vaccinated, and it's a very personal choice. And so they said that landing time is not really long enough. And so that's what I'm asking, is there a way to find out what that landing time number of seconds should be on a campaign page? And especially if it is something very personal and very highly controversial, like immunizations for children.
So first of all, I think one of the great things you've done is started to establish what your benchmark is. And the reason that's so important is, at the end of the day, if you're going to compare yourself to any other company or organization on earth, there's no one that's a closer fit to what you do than your own company. So knowing what that long-term benchmark is, so that as you develop other tools, or just over time, you can continue to compare yourself to yourself, is incredibly valuable.
Just year to year?
Well, no, I would even look at month to month, even, you know, and take a step to look at it. Are there certain weeks? You see a lot of organizations that have even weekly patterns where the second week or the third week of a month converts much better than the first or fourth week. And, you know, it depends a lot on the particular industry you're in, but a lot of decisions that have, for instance, a lot of companies that are selling things to consumers, if it's a high dollar consideration, people will be more likely to convert just immediately after any sort of after they get paid, essentially, is what it comes down to. So you have to spend some time to understand what your own pattern is.
Yeah, because we also have times like kindergarten roundup where we have spikes, you know, because they got to get them immunized.
So you're going to have certain, you know, definitely annual kind of patterns, and there's probably as people are doing registration for the spring semester and at the end of the fall semester, maybe a secondary spike. So that's the first step. As a organization that's doing things where you're not competing directly against kind of, you know, other competitors, reaching out to other states or reaching out to other cities that may have similar demographics, incredibly valuable kind of opportunity there. And you've got a great opportunity to do some fairly kind of open sharing of how well you're performing. I think the other thing to go look at is, are there particular companies that maybe have similar types of sign-up forms or similar types of landing pages? And, you know, again, if you're competing, if you're out there selling jewelry, or out there selling network software, or network evaluation software, it's harder to call up your competitor and ask how well they're performing. But you've got a somewhat unique opportunity to go do that. I think the second thing is to look at Google Analytics has an interesting set of kind of benchmark tools that started to develop. And they're not the best out there, but they're certainly, it's better than no data at all.
Right.
So using that as a point of comparison. So those are the 2 or 3 things that I would really look at, is understand establish your own benchmarks, analyze them over a couple of different time sequences, call different quote-unquote competitors or people that are doing very similar things to what you are, and share your data. You may find that they don't have their own data as kind of as locked up as you do, but it gives them an incentive to start to do that and agree to follow up in 2 months or in 1 month. Or
yeah, that's the problem I'm finding is we're more advanced than other states, and we're more advanced than the state programs.
I would recommend calling them other large states. So you probably need to get on the phone with people in California, people in New York, people in Florida, or Pennsylvania does a really good job of this stuff as well, and see if they by contacting the right people, if they can help you get that information.
something you shouldn't forget either is like it's what's stimulating conversions. I know there's another panel on conversion.
I'm sorry, what? I couldn't.
Conversion, you know, so it's like there's got to be visual cues. Like any web page, you want to make clear what you want people to do.
Right.
But different types of people respond in different ways. So some people are evaluators and looking for more information. Some people just want to get to the answer to the question, so they need to see a button. So you may be able to improve your metrics by improving your conversion experience.
Well, one of the things they did suggest was taking a look at redesigning it and also doing some splits so that when African Americans came in, they would see a different screen versus those that were Hispanic or those that were general market.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a couple, just to give some opportunity for people that were using TweetDeck to ask some questions. We have a couple here.
Sure.
Okay. So I'll just pick one. What about non-sales related metrics? Can you measure things like productivity and innovation? I didn't ask that. Yes, answer that? Yeah. We've got the Dodge look here.
Yeah.
Getting metric and getting ROI exclusively empirical data is a very, very common logjam. You're like, if I don't have this data set, this database of all these transactions that happen over this period of time, I just can't get there. There is a methodology that you can go about. We used to do this as a part of a consulting company that I worked at years ago in Silicon Valley. You can, without having the actual data, you can go through using essentially interviews and surveys with a particular structure to derive the data that you're looking for from a number of people in your target audience. Through that, you can create data sets. So, what does all that mean? So, if I'm looking at, I think it was things like productivity and innovation, in this type of situation, right? If I waited for the data to come in to find out, like, did this really matter? I'd have to wait probably 2 years, just given the infrequency of data points and whatnot. But if I created the data essentially by interviewing people that are in those areas inside of, let's say, your company, and created those data sets, those become pretty valid. Those become pretty valid. You know, that's not going to be a 95 plus or minus % probability point, but it's going to be 80, and it's going to be a lot better than that. So what you do in that type of example is you would say, okay, great. You know, one of the goals, again, go back to the goals of our community, was to improve the decisions that we make from a product basis. Okay, using the community that we have, how many decisions do you think that, how many decisions do you think that you made correctly, or how many incorrect decisions do you think you avoided by listening to the customers in our community? And that's what you would interview, and you use that question to interview your different product management groups. And then you'd have to go through, okay, what do we think as a company is the cost to incorrect decisions? And those come from 2 points. One is, what's your labor cost and what's the overhead that goes into that? But the other is, what's the opportunity cost? So when we make products, features, and decisions that aren't created to the market or that aren't optimized, versus when we do, what's the difference in revenue? So you can go through from an interview guide perspective. You just have to look at, like, what is the data that you would ultimately be looking for, and then you interview. A lot of the data that's out there is in people's heads. And you know, if we talk about word of mouth as it relates to social media creating this, there's word of mouth statistics as well.
Just to build on that for a second, I think if you think about kind of small businesses out there, one of the challenges is, all these things we're talking about take a huge amount of time. And you only have so many kind of hours in a day. So how do you kind of get to some of this stuff quickly? Because I think if you go back and look at, if you knew you would be more productive, or if you knew you would be more innovative, what would you do differently? I mean, what would you do if you actually knew the answer to that question? Because I would argue you might not do anything all that differently. You might continue, basically continue down the path you're going on, or invest more time and resources into it. If you can think through